So, are you ready to rock and roll, everybody?
Mhm.
Anybody
Yep.
got any great things that happen? Yeah, I tried a Chandler technique or I tried Wayne's technique. Anything that happened that was good for you this week?
Not too much.
Okay. All right. If you're ready, here we're gonna go. All right. Here's what I want you to think of. Instead of focusing on your reasons to do business, which become your benefits and features, try retraining your mind to focus on the prospect's reasons that they should do business with you. And the reason I put this slide up here is most of us have been, I mean, some of you are business owners, but as an employee, if you think about what companies typically do, like Brandon's in here in the other room right now with True Blue Handyman Service. He just hired somebody. I've listened to him for the last 2 hours tell this guy why this new hire, his first day today, why they're better than everybody else. I mean, he's going through his benefits and features, and I'm not saying he's wrong, but think about what this employee just in his first 2 hours has learned, that we're better than the competition because of this, this, and this. And what they think is, wow, this must be important. They just spent 2 hours of my orientation telling me why we're better than the competition. I guess I got to go out there and regurgitate this, because we as a company spend so much time telling everybody why we're better than everybody else. We get out there and try and tell everybody benefits and features, list these bullet points. But if you think about it, and I said to some of the people who were on a call a couple of weeks ago, the client knows that you're telling them about your benefits and features because you work for that company and you're the latest, greatest, most improved. They're thinking, oh, you're only telling me that because you work for the company. If you work for the competition, you'd be telling me all their bullet points and why they're the best. And so what I'm trying to get people to understand, benefits and features are important. They're important to you so that you know you're representing a good company. What's important to the client is, did you really diagnose what's wrong with me and then present solutions? People don't buy your product or service. They buy solutions to their problem. And so this training today is to give you 8 different ways of trying to find pain. And remember, you're not causing the pain. The idea is you need 3 steps. Remember, everything I do is in 3. It's the 3D training program. Finding and understanding the problem the prospect has is step number 1. All right. And then discovering, is this client willing to invest the time, the money, and effort it takes to fix this problem? All right. And how will they go about making a decision to invest the money and the effort it takes to fix the problem? Those are the qualifying steps. Those are the things you have to really fully understand before you go into fulfillment and start doing benefits and features. These are the 3 steps that are the most important steps in your meeting with a client, fully understanding those things. So I want you to remember, pain is a lot. Over the years, I'm doing training for a lot of groups, 30, 40 people in the room, for example. And I would get pushback when I would go to this section on pain. And I started analyzing why. Why do people start fighting me on this when I'm doing training? I think what happens is none of us want to cause pain. We were all told, don't hurt somebody, don't cause pain. And what happens is, I think when I use the word pain, some people resist it and think, oh God, I don't want to go out there and cause pain. You're not causing pain. The pain is there. You're just asking questions that bring the pain to the surface or help the client discover that they have pain that they didn't know they had. Now, you're not causing the pain. You're not that guy that's telling somebody that, when they went in for an oil change, that, oh my God, your brakes are terrible. I can't believe you drove in here and were able to stop. You don't leave here today without letting me fix those brakes. That's the kind of guy that's causing pain. Instead of discovering, hey, did you have any issues recently? Are you hearing any squeaking? Is the caliper grinding on your rotor? Is this causing any issues? That's where you help somebody discover they have pain instead of just telling them that they have pain. I mean, how do you feel when somebody says, yeah, you know what your problem is? Let me tell you what your problem is, right? None of us like it. So just understand, pain is the gap between the prospect's desired outcome and their current reality, where they currently are. Again, that pain exists when there's a gap between, where the prospect is currently and where your prospect wants to go. That's pain. That's why when I talked to you a couple of weeks ago or even last week, and I said, hey, one of the best techniques, if you're not using it, is the let's pretend. Let's pretend it's a year from now. Tell me what your life is like. A great example, sometimes examples really work. I had a client that I was talking to, a prospect rather, not a client yet because I got to do the proposal. But he said, this sounds really great, but I think I want to wait until January. All right. Now, I can sit there and say, oh, that's great. Call me when you're ready. That's the wimp out. That's the guy that wimp out. Or I can say, well, help me understand this. I'm kind of confused. You got an issue. You've determined that you have an issue. Let's come January. Let's say you didn't change in the next 3 months, October, November, December. You don't do anything. Are you any better off because you waited until January, or you're worse off because you waited until January? And let the client discover, yeah, I guess that's really it. Well, help me understand, why are you holding back wanting to wait till January? Is it a budgetary issue? Is it a time issue? And come to find out, it was not a budgetary issue. It was, I want to hire a couple more people. I don't want to start training until I bring these people on board so that I'm not spending money and then have to do it again. Great. I mean, but he didn't want to tell me that up front. But because I had the guts, discipline, and vitality to dig deeper and ask paying questions, I was able to find out what the real challenge or issue was. So that's why you stay in the pain compartment as long as you can, so that you can understand that your product or service bridges that gap between where the prospect is and where they want to be. And again, you're kind of like, think about it as a bridge. You're creating this bridge. But I want you to understand something. When prospects use intellectually oriented qualifier phrases, like talking about their existing problems, it's usually an indication that they don't view the situation with any sense of urgency. So what I mean by that, when they say things like, well, we're thinking about upgrading our equipment, or we've been considering the various alternatives replacing our inventory tracking system, or we're exploring the possibilities, we're open to hearing. Every one of these words that's underlined, I call these fat words. That's me, my own. What does it really mean? We're thinking about. Anytime you hear an intellectual qualifier that isn't emotional, remember, people buy emotionally, they validate logically later. These are kind of like intellectual things that are, all I want you to, here's the technique. As soon as you hear that key word, a fat word that doesn't really describe what this challenge is, repeat the fat word. Help me understand, considering, not sure I understand what you mean by exploring, when you're open, what does open really mean? Because when you challenge somebody on, as we talked before, distortion, solutions, or generalization, they feel that, well, I must give that person more information. So these are intellectual qualifiers. People buy emotionally. When the prospects refer to their existing outcome gaps using emotionally oriented words, such as frustrated, concerned, worried, unhappy, it's an indication that their situation is such, it's important enough that they're going to take action. So, I mean, as the product manager, I'm concerned with our equipment reliability. As the CEO of this company, I'm frustrated with our mid-year numbers. As an investor in this company, I'm disappointed in the recent portfolio. When you hear those kind of words, emotional words, boy, now you think, well, this person's really a little bit more qualified because they're using those emotional words. If they don't use them, then you do. Help me understand, what really concerns you about the equipment reliability you have. Help me understand, what is it that really frustrates you the most about your mid-year numbers? So that's how you can kind of get pain, as you use these emotional words to try and get people to buy. Remember, people buy emotionally, they validate later logically. But at the beginning, sometimes they use some of these qualifiers, kind of, maybe, thinking, probably. Those are fat words. Anytime you hear them, repeat the fat word to get clarification. All right. So remember, you're kind of like the toll collector on the left side of the bridge. The toll must be paid with the prospect's own emotional words. To be able to cross from where they are to where they want to be, you've got to really listen to the manner in which the prospect describes what's going on with the interest in your product or service. And again, if they use intellectual words, question them on their actual time frame for taking action. So again, if they use emotional words, question them on the importance and the impact of the problem and allow them to cross the bridge over to where they want to be. And a lot of times you can get the client to decide and tell you, hey, let's pretend it's 6 months from now. Describe for me what you hope I can do for you so that you can say, wow, this is fantastic. I'm glad Mark came in and did a proposal for me today. Ask the client what it looks like when you're done. So remember the pain puzzle. Pain is, first pain a client gives you is what we call surface pain. It's not the real problem, but again, people are, remember the steps in their system is to mislead about their true intentions and not tell you how bad it really hurts. They're not bad people when they do that. They just don't want to tell you how bad it hurts because they're afraid, oh my God, you'll try and sell me something. So that's why they give you those intellectual words. You know, we might be interested, always interested in hearing more. We're not sure if we're going to do anything, but we were thinking about this, and they give you a little bit of surface pain. Then what happens is you'll get more of a business pain or more of a pain as far as what's going on that probably is a third party pain. Well, my wife wants a new kitchen, or my boss thinks we better have a better CRM tracking program. And they always disassociate themselves with it. But then the last piece that's most important is the personal pain. Give you another example. If somebody says, well, I'm just the office manager. I've been assigned to go buy a new office copy machine. Really doesn't affect me. I'm just supposed to go out and find the best. But then if you can sit there and say, yeah, but what if you make the wrong decision? You make a decision, you buy a machine that doesn't have a document sorter, it doesn't automatic collate, it doesn't staple. And now you got people standing in line at the copy machine room, making copies instead of being at their desk. And the boss walks by and sees the line of people trying to make copies. I don't suppose that affects you at all, does it? Oh, well, yeah, they're going to be mad at me because I didn't buy the right. There is always a personal pain, no matter how somebody tries to separate themselves. Even if they say, well, I'm not the decision maker, I'm just going to gather all their information, then I give it to the powers be, and the powers will be able to make the decision. Yeah, but what if you give them the wrong data? What if you supply them with the wrong information? Help me understand, how does that impact you? So when you start thinking about the pain puzzle, what I want you to think about is, again, what is the existing problem or the potential problem? Remember, current and then future. What's causing the problem? Why is this a problem? And then the impact that problem's having. And I apologize again, but I got to give you examples sometimes to score these PowerPoints I put up there. So I had a client one time that came to me, insurance agent, and he said, yeah, I'm thinking about sales training. And I said, okay, so help me understand, why are you thinking about sales training? Well, I just think it'd be better off to be able to increase our numbers. If we have more sales, I thought training might help me increase my numbers, my sales numbers. And I go, yeah, but what's causing this problem? Why are your sales numbers down to begin with? And he says, well, I'm spread too thin. I'm trying to get my daughter involved in the business so she can work as far as with people in the office that are having claims or whatever. But I'm dealing so much with service, I'm not able to go out and expand my business. Okay, so what? So that's what's causing the problem. You don't have enough sales so that you can hire somebody. Is that what's going on? Yeah, I'd like to be able to hire somebody because, quite frankly, the problem is this: my daughter's in the business. We have a lake house up north, and I'd like to be able to go as a full family. As a full family, we've never been able to go up to the lake house because somebody's always got to be back at the office dealing with customer service and claims. If I could hire somebody, then my daughter and her family could join us, and I could have the grandkids. We're going to have everybody at the lake house together. But I can't do that unless I hire somebody, and I can't hire somebody unless I get my sales up. See how I went from what the problem is to what's causing the problem and what the personal impact that problem is having on them. And that's when all of a sudden I started seeing him get emotion involved when he started telling me the impact that I'm not able to go on a family vacation together. My daughter's got to stay here. Somebody's got to run the shop. We're not able to take a full week off. When you get people emotionally involved, now they start really needing your product or service. So that's why I told you that story, because again, the impact, what are the consequences of living with the problem? Negative. What are the positive consequences of eliminating the problem? This is where a lot of people, Rob, they don't go that far. They hear the problem and they let me tell you, I'm going to fix it. And they don't get into the full detail about what we can do, what's causing the problem. Talk to me about living with. Because if you just try and solve the problem without really exploring it this deeply, you'll get the TIO. This sounds great. Let me think it over. Because again, they're not motivated to action by the intensity of their pain. You're not causing the pain. You just need to get to what's the impact the problem is having on them. The personal, compelling, emotional reason to do business. So again, we're motivated to action by the intensity of our pain or our desire to gain pleasure. So again, avoiding pain in the present or future, gaining pleasure in the future. But the strongest motivator is how to avoid present pain. Second is future pain, then pleasure, typically. So focus on what are reasons to do business, the pain. All right. Now, everybody comes to me, great, I get it, Wayne. You spent already about 20 minutes on talking about the pain and that step. How do I get it? Well, a couple of different ways. Again, the reverse is one of the best ways to do it. The reverse is when somebody says, well, we're thinking about doing this, but I want to wait till January. The reverse would be something like, really? Why aren't you waiting until March? See, they didn't expect you to do that. They expected you to try and pull you to now. And when somebody says, well, I'm thinking about waiting until January, I appreciate that, but why wouldn't you just put it off until another year from now? Would that make sense? Now it has to happen. They have to defend their position. And so, well, God, I don't want it until March. Well, if you're willing to wait till January, I don't understand why would 3 more months make a difference. And again, now they give you, oh, I'm not going to go 6 months without having this. I'm not going to go this month. So they didn't expect you to go there. The negative reverse is similar to what I just said, but negative reverse is something like a client says, you know what, I think I want to go get 3 bids. Well, that makes sense. I appreciate that. But, how many people are in my market that do what I do? Boy, there's probably 10 to 15 different people who do what I do in this market. Why don't you go get 15 bids? Why only 3? Because if you really want to make sure you're comparing apples to apples, wouldn't you want to go get bids from everybody? Oh God, I don't have time to get, 15 bids. Well, that makes sense. But how do you know the 3 that you're going to get? Wouldn't it make sense that as soon as you find somebody, you can solve your problem at a price you can afford? Does it make sense to even go any further? That's kind of a negative reverse. And a lot of people don't have the guts, discipline, and vitality to do that. Pain funnel is the next one. We've talked about that. We've done the pneumatic. I've got a couple of slides here going on the pain funnel a little bit more after this. The dummy curve, strip line, magic wand time machine, start, stop, third-party stories. And let me get into each one of those a little bit more detail for you. The start stop is something like this. And this is a problem because, and you let them run with it. All right, that's the start stop where you stop your sentence, because what happens is there's a lot of people that when hey, I just can't put my finger, I can't find the right words. Some people will jump in and give you the conclusion to your sentence that you started with. So that's one way to get pain. A lot of my clients tell me that their biggest issue is, and the client will tell you what their biggest issue is. Typically my clients have this issue. Strip line is kind of like fishing. If any of you are fishermen and you're thinking about crappie, for example, crappie sometimes has it's called a paper mouth because its mouth membrane is so soft. If a bobber starts to run and it starts to move because a crappie grabbed your bait, if you pull too hard, you'll rip it right out of their mouth. So a lot of people are taught strip line, take line off, let them run with it as long as possible until it goes underwater, then slowly set the hook and you'll retrieve them. So strip line is the same thing. A lot of clients are struggling with this. Can you tell me more? Let them run with their pain a little bit. Don't be so anxious to, as soon as you hear pain, to think that you're ready to go solve it. Third-party stories. Now, here's the thing with third-party stories. In the DISC profile, S's like third-party stories. D's hate them. So be careful about third-party stories. But it always asks permission. Hey, can I tell you a story about a client who, this is when a client isn't giving you pain. They're not giving you any detailed pain, but they have pain, so you can use a third-party story to get it. Excuse me for a second. Don't want to, just about ready to sneeze. My apologies, I'm back. So third-party stories are, again, where you say, hey, I had a client who had this problem, this problem, this problem, and not all worlds are the same, but this is what we did for them. If that's what we did for you, how would that sound? Or whatever disc profile you would, how would that feel? How would that look? Those are the words you kind of use. So third-party stories, though, you have to ask permission first. Do you mind if I tell you a story about, and always try and do, if you can, at least 1 degree of separation. Because if you say, I had a client who did this, 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 and we did this for him, sometimes it sounds too pushy, if you will. If you can sit there and say, if you're Kendra, for example, hey, Sam had a client and this was their problem, and this is what he did for them. Is that the kind of thing you'd like us to do? So separate if you can when you do a third-party story. Again, the magic wand or the time machine. Again, if I could wave a magic wand, or if I could have a time machine and I could take you to the future, can you describe for me how you hope somebody like me would solve the problem? And again, the time machine's the same thing. If we fast forward 6 months from now, what will it look like if we did this? Again, if someone gave you a lower price in 6 months, would you leave? And I do this with when I do monthly sales training. Hey, if you found sales training 6 months from now at a less monthly price that I'm charging, would you leave me? And it'd get things like, well, no, not if it's still going well. Under what circumstances would you leave me? Well, if they did this, or you didn't do this. Again, they will describe for you pain situations that they hope you solve. And then you can have that conversation now about what makes you different than your competition. A negative versus, would it be fair to say we'll not be working together? That doesn't sound like a problem. I'm getting the sense that, but always do it finish with why am I feeling that way? Negative, hey, I'm getting the sense that I have not shown you how my product or service can solve your problem at a price that you can afford. But why am I feeling that way? When you do that reverse, you're putting the pressure back on the client instead of you taking it. So again, it's hey, I'm getting the feeling that you wouldn't want to do this, this, and this. Why am I feeling that way? Hold on for a second, please. Somebody walked in and I think Brandon's supposed to work with them. So excuse me for 1 second. Can I help you? Okay, well, he'll probably be in his truck's gone. He was here and left a few minutes ago. We're gonna meet it. Okay. My apologies. All right, at this point, questions that you've been thinking, or even, as I call them, yeah buts. Are there yeah buts, Wayne? No? All right, again, while we're doing this session, is a lot of people do the pain funnel that we're going to go through next. And if that doesn't work, I needed to give you some other techniques to fall back on. So again, the start, stop, the strip line, third-party stories, magic wand or time machine, negative reverse. The dummy curve is another one that a lot of people don't use and they don't understand it real well. So let me go back to the dummy curve. The dummy curve is, again, it's a misleading term. The dummy curve is, help me, I'm not sure I understand. You're just playing dumb, not about the application of your product or service, or about the knowledge of it, but how the client would actually use your product or service. So the dumber you act, the more people want to help you. I mean, if somebody walked in like this guy right now, if somebody walked in and just tried to say to me, hey, I want to sell you such and such, I'd say, get the hell out of here, I'm on a call. But if somebody walked in here lost like this guy did, they just walked in and I can see him in my window here, then I want to go out and help them. When somebody acts lost, we are conditioned to try and help them. Your prospects work the same way. Help me understand, I'm confused, not sure I got that. Can you tell me more? The dumber you act, and I'm not saying about your product or service, I'm talking about whether you understand what the client needs and wants are. The dumber you act about it, the more information they'll provide to you. And those of you who haven't been in my training too long, you might remember that in the onboard we talk about your job is to get information, not give it. For the first several steps, bond report, upfront contract, paying, budget, decision, all the way in those few steps, your job is to get information so that when you get to the fulfillment part, you can do such a better job of fulfilling and solving their problem because you got all this information. Most people think your job is to provide information to the client and overwhelm them with benefits and features. And again, that's the biggest difference between my training and most sales training. Most training is to take your product or service, your benefits and features, and how to present them in a better mode. Our training is about your products or service are great already. How do I get the client to acknowledge that they have pain? And then I'm uniquely positioned to solve that pain. So the dummy curve is one that I like to use a lot. I'm good at the dummy curve because I'm really good at playing dumb. I'm confused, help me understand. This doesn't make sense to me, probably makes sense to you, but I'm really confused. The more you act confused, the more pain that the people will give you because they think, well, you didn't get it. Don't you get it? I got to tell you more. The amateur salesperson, they hear the pain and here's what they say. Oh, I've heard that before. Oh yeah, let me tell you, we've dealt with that problem hundreds of times. And you think you're establishing more credibility because you've dealt with this issue. But remember, to the client, they're thinking, well, this is unique to me. They don't want to hear that, oh my God, you're just like everybody else. Yeah, we deal with this all the time. You can say something like, hey, we've dealt with problems similar to yours, but not all worlds are the same. Maybe your situation's a little bit different. Can you give me more background information, a little bit more about what's going on here? So that you can justify that you are doing something for them, but you're not immediately admitting and saying, oh, you're just like everybody else. Nobody likes to feel that way. So again, I've left this slide up here for a reason, because those people watching this again on the YouTube channel, once I post these, I want you to keep track of these different ways of creating or getting pain. It was funny, I was at a training session in 2007 with about 200 other sales trainers in this room down in Florida. The Rosen Hotel in Orlando, Rob, you might be familiar with it. It's right on International Parkway, right there by the Universal and everything. I'm 200 salespeople in this room, sales trainers, sales coaches. And the speaker got up and said to them, yes, we all understand that we need to talk about reasons to do business. How do you get people to do that? How do you get people to understand reasons to do business? A whole room went silent. 200 sales trainers. So that's why we've come up with the 8 ways of finding pain, the different methodologies that you can use. So the next couple of slides are a little bit more detail on the pain funnel, because this is one that if you master, you'll be great at going through all of these. So again, the idea, the number one is tell me more. Can you be more specific? Give me some examples. How long has this been going on? What have you tried to do about it? Did that work? How much has this problem cost you? And how do you feel about that? Now, the pain funnel is designed to get these people to admit that they have a problem. And what happens is, if you go through all the way from the pain funnel, can you tell me more? Can you be a little bit more specific? And then you go into this. I love these 3 next ones. How long has this been going on? What have you done to fix that problem? And did it work? What happens is, how long has this going on? Boy, this has been going on a long time. It's just not a recent problem. What'd you do about it? Well, I tried to do it on my own. I tried to do something on my own. Did that work? No, it didn't. Or I went with so-and-so. These questions right here help eliminate competition, or help the client stop that they're not going to do it themselves. Or if they did work with somebody else, they were unhappy with what their performance was. So that's why I asked you, how long has it been going on? What did you try to fix it? What did you try to do about it? Did it work? No, it didn't. How much do you think this has cost you? How much have you lost? And again, when you see cost, don't always associate with money, time, money, and effort. How much time, money, and effort does this cost you? How does that feel about it? Now, what I'm trying to do is give you a couple more ways of taking the pain funnel. And can you elaborate that on a little bit more? Can you give me a recent example? Can you share with me a real world example? This has been going on for how long? Or is this a fairly recent issue? What steps have you taken to address this? What have you done to resolve it? What results did that produce? And why do you think it didn't work? This probably isn't cost you any money, and whatever it is that significant money? Is this significant? What's the impact on you and your department? This isn't affecting you personally, is it? This hasn't been a big issue, has it? Those are the kind of things that I talk about when you start drilling down and taking these same questions over on the right and putting them on your own words. But again, you're still getting all the way down to this funnel where you get to the point where at least you've got the client admitting they have a problem. You fully get and understand what the problem is. The client's admitting how long this problem's gone. The clients admitted that they weren't able to fix the problem on their own. This is costing them money. What you're trying to get to the point where they're begging you, fix my problem. What can you do to fix my problem? Because you stayed in the pain compartment and didn't wimp out and jump to premature presentation. So again, the pain compartment, no pain, no sale. So remember, before you leave the compartment, review all the pains. Make sure I have it. Mr. Prospect, you said this is a problem, this is a problem. Do I have it? Yeah. And it's costing you this, this, this. And if you don't do anything about it, it's going to be this issue, right? And get validation from the prospect that you completely understand their pain. All right. Make sure you get it, and then get verbal confirmation that really, is there anything else? You know, anything I'm missing? Is there any part of this program I didn't get? What else do you need to tell me? Because you close this compartment before you go on to the next compartment. Make sure you've really, really got the pain. But as I go back to my first slide, you're not causing the pain. Don't hesitate to stay in the pain compartment because you've been conditioning your own mind. Don't cause pain. The pain's already there. You're just the guide to help this client discover that they really have pain. So
Wayne, can I ask you a question about
yeah,
that?
go right ahead. Last slide anyway, so go ahead.
Okay. So say, I mean, I've got a client that we're presenting with this afternoon, and they're pretty open with us about their pain. They've got one child, they want to have more children. They've got a space on their third floor. They'd like to finish off for a space for an au pair so that they have a space for the, you know, somebody to live. They've given us, you know, parameters of what they'd like. So other than restating their pain, you know, I understand you'd like to create a space, separate space for an au pair so you can have, you know, space in your home to have a child and a separate living space for this au pair to live. Help me with some ideas of how to and the value of getting them to talk about more pain when they've been pretty open about, it seems like, what their pain
What's
is.
the consequences if they don't do anything? Have you had that conversation? Just say, hey, let's pretend you don't do anything. You just decide that you'll won't move. What's going to be the negative impact if you don't do something?
So, I mean, okay, if they've told us that this is a project that we want to do,
Do you believe
what I struggle with personally, I've sat in front of tons of timeshare presentation people who have used this type of questioning on me over and over, and I find it manipulative. So I'm trying to find a way to do this in a way that's not feeling like I'm trying to manipulate them when I feel like I already understand their pain.
Well,
So I'm just being open. This is what goes through my mind.
Again, that's that question of how do you feel that they're emotionally involved? Because at that point you can leave we have another slide, and maybe we remember it. When do you get to leave the pain compartment? When the client is emotionally and personally connected.
Mm-hmm.
Let that happen. You don't need to stay in there. You don't have to do all the techniques.
Sure. Okay.
You feel that they're emotionally involved and they're not giving you just intellectual reasons. That they're really feeling, and they're using, yeah, we're really worried about if we don't do this, that our living situation is going to be unbearable. Well, that's enough. You don't have to go through the timeshare presentation. But again, I appreciate it. I've had that question asked me, hey, Wayne, don't you think that the techniques you're teaching are manipulative? The answer to that question is, I have a dog who's worth about $30,000, a well-trained hunting field trial champion. The reason we value the dogs based on the value of their puppies that she can have. If my dog keeper is running across the street and is going to get hit by a car and I yell, keep her treat, which will bring her back to me. I really don't have a treat, but I yell, keep her treat. Is that manipulative? Yes, it is, but for a good reason. So as long as I'm doing it for a good reason and I didn't get enough pain, don't feel that you're being manipulative. You're really saying, I don't believe I have enough information. I don't believe the client is emotionally and personally involved. So I've got to stay in the pain department. But again, once you feel that they're emotionally involved, feel free to leave the pain department. You don't have to go through all the techniques. Do you feel that these people are emotionally involved that you're giving me this example on?
Yeah, very much.
Do you think anything would hold them back?
No, they're going to finish up this space. This is something that they're going to do. Yeah.
Anything that would
For
hold them
them,
back?
it's finding the right fit for the
Yeah,
project.
well, that's what I'm saying. Is anything that would hold them back from hiring you?
Typically, price is about the only thing.
Okay, so if you ask that question, hey, I'm just curious, other than price, is there any reason you wouldn't move forward with us?
I haven't. We're having the
Okay,
presentation this afternoon.
good. All right. No, I appreciate the question because sometimes people do take me too literal and they think we have to go through every one of these 8 pains before you move. No, as soon as you think that people are emotionally involved, you can move on. Okay.
Yeah, I totally understand the need for understanding people's emotional need for a project. I just don't want to ever. I've just got a extreme repulsion to people doing that, and I don't want to come close to doing that. So
Oh,
that's
none
too
of us do.
manipulating.
None of us want to come across that timeshare person. But remember, they don't do it very nurturingly. So
I've had ones that do it extremely nurturingly.
and you still get annoyed by
So, yeah, they're super likable people, but every time they're asking me these questions, I say, oh, they're trying to soften me up.
it. You think they're doing
So,
that because again, they've just been taught a system and they go through the steps no matter what, instead of recognizing they can step out of the program because they got the person involved now? Or what do you think? Why do they continue to alienate you, I guess?
yeah, it's a lot of times it's really nice up until the time when and I've been upfront with them. I said, I'm not going to be buying your product. I'm sitting here because this is what you've offered. You told me it's 90 minutes. And I just, it's really interesting to sit and watch their processes. And a lot of them are very, very good. But
I
anyway,
think,
I don't want to sidetrack us too
I
much.
was going to
and
give
I
you a
think
bad
what
time a
happens
little
is,
bit, Ben, about that and say, maybe don't go to all these free presentations and you won't have to feel so bad about it. But
Yeah, I'm done doing them. That's been in the past. My wife and I said we're done done doing that, but it's been interesting to watch the processes.
well, some people describe that as a hard close or a hard sell. I think people buy in spite of it, not because of it.
Hmm.
That makes sense. I think, people maybe wanted a timeshare no matter what, and they were going to buy, and the hard sell didn't make them buy. But you could push people away.
Yeah, there's tons
So,
of buyer regret at the end of these. So
as I said, you don't have to take every one of my techniques. Don't try and, well, here's a great story. I'll give you that. Dave Matson, who's now running Sandler training, before Dave Sandler died, went on a sales call with Dave Sandler. And Dave Sandler did this great presentation. They get back in the car, and Sandler said to Matson, "So what do you think? What'd you think of the presentation?" And Matson goes, "Well, quite frankly, I'm kind of disappointed." "What do you mean?" "Well, I didn't see the stroke, repeat, reverse. I didn't see the pain funnel. I didn't see this." And Dave Sandler went, "Do you see the check?" So the moral of the story is you don't have to do every step. If your gut tells you this person is emotionally involved, I got enough pain. Next, move on. Okay. But again, no pain, no sale. If they're not giving you, hey, we're always thinking about doing something, always interested in looking, and they're just not giving you a lot of pain, stay in that pain compartment. All right. Questions from anybody else? That was the last slide on this presentation part. I'm open to additional, hey, I've got this client with that. Is there anybody who's questions in the pain compartment? Do you understand the 8 different ways of getting pain? Don't mean you don't have to do them all. Just think about which ones you are really good at, or you enjoy the best, and get again. My 2 go-tos are the pain funnel, and dummy curve. Those are my 2 best that I like to be really good at. Negative reverse. Be careful of negative reverse. Again, the negative reverse can come across as kind of snotty if you don't do it right. Negative just means the opposite of what they expect, but not that you have to be negative. It's just the opposite of what the client expects. Rob, you've been through the program more than anybody else. What do you want to add or contribute?
Yeah, I don't have anything to contribute right at the moment, except for going back to that Ben's aversion to asking manipulatively and that kind of thing. What you're really going for is, how are they going to do business? What are they looking for? What is important to them from an emotional standpoint? You make it your own. I don't manipulate anybody. I don't want to manipulate anybody. And I don't want to work with everybody either. So part of that is going down that road, going, are we a fit? I'm trying to figure out if we're a fit in the first place. So the way that Wayne's teaching it is so that you can remember the different opportunities for bringing that up, but you still have to make it your own, which he's already said multiple times.
Appreciate that. Mark, how about you? Anything you want to add?
I think what Ben and I probably both feel, obviously, too, is like most of our clientele aren't coming to us with pain, but more from, a joy standpoint. Like, I mean, they don't, a lot of our projects don't necessarily have to be done. They're bonuses, they're luxuries, they're things like that. And so I think sometimes that's hard to know how to solve. I guess I feel that same way. It's like, okay, I'm not coming in as a white knight saving from pain. I'm coming in providing a luxury to a point in their life. You know what I mean? Like we have a job right now in Park City that they bought a house that's not even 12 months old and we're gutting the kitchen. There's no pain there. It's completely luxury. You know what I mean? So I guess that's the question maybe I would like ask.
They could still make dinner, the pain that okay.
Yeah, their cook can still make dinner in the house. Yes, exactly. That type of but I
Well,
mean that's
remember I said 4 ways of gaining
Yeah.
pleasure and now and in the future. So those happen too. But again, what would be, they've already determined they want the pleasure of having a new kitchen.
yeah.
But what's the pain if they don't pay you to provide that service? What would be the challenges? Anybody could do the kitchen, but what could be the things that differentiates you from somebody else?
And it may not be something they even recognize at first.
Well, and that's part of the thing. People go into it and say, well, you're all the same. I mean, Rob, in your world, all you CRM systems are all the same. But what do you provide that the other ones wouldn't provide?
Mhm.
That's that thing. So, yeah, I get it, Mark and Ben. I get it. You guys sometimes people are excited about doing their project and they just want to move forward with it. And that's okay. But again, typically what I find when I'm working with remodelers, advantage of the builders is, yeah, they're great at getting to the presentation step. The problem is they can't close. And the reason is because it's not at the end. It was in the pain compartment that they didn't get enough information. So it makes it difficult to close because they didn't do enough of a pain step. But once you feel that there's enough pain, get out of that compartment. Just don't get out of it too soon without being the emotional connection there.
But that pain may very well not be the typical pain. It may be very well, why are they going to go with you? And by asking these hard questions, I think you gain credibility, don't you, Wayne?
Well, yeah, you are judged more by the questions you ask than the answers you give. I agree with that. You gain credibility by asking questions of people that didn't even think about. Hey, where I'm at right now, building permits are so expensive. We've got a huge issue of water. I mean, to get a building permit is $300,000 for a new house, or $330,000 for a new $300,000 house. So nobody's building $300,000 homes because the developers aren't going to spend that much money on a building permit. They're going to build a $600,000 or $700,000, which means more people are remodeling the houses they have now and trying to stay in the houses that they have now. And so that could be a conversation I have with somebody. Hey, if you decided that you wanted to start from scratch, do you have any idea what a building permit would cost? Perhaps there's things that I can do in the development to help reduce the building permit cost. What are the things that you'd be looking for? Are there things that we could do in phases? And people, I didn't know you could do that. I didn't think you could do that. Instead of just, oh, you should do this in phases. When you put it in a question format, it doesn't sound as much as if you're pushing somebody. Rob's right. When you put it in a question format, you can gain credibility and still pull them instead of push them. So again, take your benefits and features. If you haven't done it yet, take all those bullet points that you already have on your website or on your brochures and try and figure out how to put it in a question format. Because they're important, the benefits and features. It's important as to how you present them, though. So put them in question. Suppose I said that I can do this, this, or that. Would that make a difference? Would that be important to you? Suppose I said being a member of the local chamber helps me do this, or being a member of the BBB, being in the Better Business Bureau gives us an ombudsman program, or is that anything that would be of interest to you? Instead of just listing it as a bullet point, put it in a question format so the client can tell you what they think is important. Because they might have dropped right. They might not have even thought it was important until you put it in a question form. They go, oh yeah, that's important. I had thought about that. Again, people believe only half of what you say, but 100% of what they say. We don't argue with our own data, but I'll argue with yours. So if you put it in question format, it doesn't sound like you're pushing. Got it? Anybody else got anything?
So Wayne, I have a question because I struggle with getting to the actual right questions. Sometimes I feel like the ones I'm asking are a little obvious, and they're going to say, well, of course, type of thing. So how do I get past those obvious ones and into the ones that actually speak to what we're looking
You
at?
have to be curious and skeptical. Instead of walking in with a preconceived notion, they're just like everybody else, they have these problems. You just need to walk in, hey, I'm curious. Why would you even want to do this? Just help me understand. I think you need to use the dummy curve where you don't really understand. When the person says, well, we just went, I added an addition on a mother-in-law unit for my mother-in-law. And I go, and that's because, why do you want to have a mother? Well, because the cost of putting her in a home is just going to be outrageous. And help me understand why. What's that going to cost? Oh my God, they want $2,000 a month to put her in a home, and my wife is just no way. My wife wants her to live with us, but that couldn't happen the way it is right now with our house. We got to do something. See that now he's using emotional words. You see him even get emotionally involved, but just stay curious and skeptical. I'm curious what. Again, I said this to some people, but most people can't. You're too young to remember Walter Cronkite. Walter Cronkite was at one point considered the most trustworthy man in America when he did the evening news on CBS. In his book, he wrote a book on interviewing people, and he interviewed Anwar Sadat and some other people. He put in his book, you can ask somebody and reverse them with because 3 times before it gets annoying. Because we need to do a new kitchen, because my kitchen's just out of date, because my wife is complaining that her sister got a new kitchen. Why can't she have a new kitchen? Because everybody goes over to her house for Thanksgiving, and she wants a whole Thanksgiving at our house, but she can't do it until we get a new kitchen. Did you really ask a lot of questions? Look how much pain you got by just going 3 times because. Again, we are so conditioned that we like our product and service so well. As soon as we're pain, we want to jump to, let me show you how we fix that.
The other thing that you might want to consider is take these concepts and role play them with your husband. I'm sorry, I don't remember your husband's name.
Mark.
You're comfortable.
Yeah, so just play curious and skeptical because, and again, people ask me, what questions should I use? I just say because.
Makes it easier for sure.
Yeah, we make this too hard. We put so much pressure on ourselves to have the perfect saying, to have the perfect script. And you'll have these salespeople, like we were talking about, like Ben was, these guys that are doing the timeshares, they have a script that they follow. And it sounds automated. It sounds, canned. And we want to have a conversation, not an interrogation.
Mm-hmm.
So when you role play it, just as Rob said, that's a great thing. When you play with somebody, your questions, and it sounds like an interrogation, you're doing it wrong. It has to sound like a conversation, not an interrogation.
Gotcha.
So role play, I mean, that's the best thing I can do is role play it, because if you don't role play it and then you go out there and try these techniques, you'll come back to me, Wayne, we're going to quit with you because it didn't work. Again, it's gotta sound like you really are curious and skeptical. It's kind of like the story I already told you, heard it, but in Seinfeld, where Jerry tries to get George to tell him, how did you pass the lie detector test? And he goes, it's not a lie if you believe it. Well, you're not, you really have to be curious and skeptical. It's not an act. You really are curious and skeptical. Don't act it. Some people think that's what the best salespeople are, the best actors. I think the best salespeople are people just human, and they're really curious and skeptical, and then they ask a lot of questions because they really are curious and skeptical. I'm confused. Help me understand. Why would you want to do this? What would you hope I could do? That kind of thing. All right. Anyway, as a result of today's training, I need 3, and I'll let you go. We'll hang up when you give me. I at least get 3 responses. As a result of today's training, what are you going to start doing or stop doing because you sat here and gave me 55 minutes of your life?
jumping to the presentation too quickly.
Okay. Do you find yourself doing that even out now? Rob, after all the training you've been through, but
I
that's
lose patience because I'm not asking questions correctly, probably. And people,
probably help me understand probably.
yeah, that
See the fat word? As soon as I heard the fat word, I want to
yeah,
repeat.
I'm being humble here is
Okay.
is all. And we're not getting where I want to go. So I'm like, come on, let's just here, let me show you how to do this. And it's just a lack of patience.
I think we can all be guilty of that sometimes. All right, two more. As a result of today's training, what are going to start or stop doing?
I got something.
Sam?
Don't just tell the client that we do this all the time and jump into our expertise. I definitely have a tendency to do that. And
Do you really? I can tell you, I think you're the type of person, you really love your company or you wouldn't be working for your in a family owned business otherwise. And you can't wait
For sure.
to help people, right?
yep. And yeah, I mean, yes, we do this all the time, but to purposefully pull out more of the pain or be more curious about why they're
Here's one of the rules.
want what they're,
If you
yeah.
feel it, say it. So in your world, it can sound like this. Hey, Sam, obviously I think we're the best company. It's a family-owned business. I wouldn't be working for the family business, but I didn't think we're the best. But would it be fair to say it doesn't matter what I say, it matters what you think? Tell me more about why you'd pick a company like us. You can say it. You can actually say things like that. Hey, of course I'm going to tell you we're the greatest, most improved. But again, I'm biased because I work in a family business. But if you work for a family business, how would you do it? What would you tell? Again, if you feel it, say it, but say it nurturingly. You know, one thing I think the salespeople have a problem with being vulnerable. Salespeople need to be a little bit sometimes self-deprecating and say things like, hey, I've got a list of benefits and features. We've got a list of things they taught me in training about why we're the greatest, most improved. Can we just throw those away for now? And you just tell me what would be important to you? Okay. That's what I mean by really just having a conversation instead of interrogation. But if you feel it, say it, but say it nurturingly. One more, as a result of today's training, what are you going to start or stop doing?
I
Mark.
think I'm going to try and start asking more questions about extending the pain into the future. I don't do that. I don't talk about what'll happen if they change, and I don't talk about what'll happen if they don't change. And I think that's going to be a key to talking to them about their pain. So
It sounds to me, I'd be curious. I assume you're probably going to stay in this house for years. Is that right? And they go, well, yeah, we plan to. Do you think that anything that we do we need to take into consideration, you might sell this? So sometimes people, do a lot of work on a house thinking that it's great for them, but they don't realize it doesn't add any resale value to the house. The same thing people put in a pool. They put in a $20,000 pool. That didn't mean their house value went up 20,000.
no.
Any issues, so those are the kind of things you can have a conversation with somebody that they really understand and get the feel that you're interested in them and solving their problem instead of you just pitching benefits and features. So that's what I mean by taking it into the future. Okay. Have a conversation. I guess that's the moral of the story. Make sure your question, your pain compartment conversation comes across as a conversation, not an interrogation. Okay. Anybody else got one? All right. Again, this will be posted. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, again, it's just the YouTube/@ WAYNEDEHN, and all the things are posted. You can go back to old videos. I put a bunch of stuff on there for you. So I'll let you make sure you've done that and go back. But as soon as this one gets transferred, converted, I'll let you know and send you an email as to the link. Okay. Thanks for playing full out.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.